Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. In this video, for the first time on my channel, we're going to be looking at the Nauvoo Neighbor, which was a newspaper published in Nauvoo when the Saints were there. And there's this section in this issue called 100 Years Hence, 1945. And it talks about this, so it's like a vision or a dream, and it talks about a feast that's going to be instituted for the martyrs Joseph and Hiram Smith, and that it's going to be on the 7th day of the 4th month. And I had never heard about this before. It really interested me when I saw that detail of this vision, because recently we've been talking about the 7th day of the 4th month. In President Nelson's last talk in General Conference, Rejoice in the Gift of Priesthood Keys, he says, "My dear brothers and sisters, today is an historic day for President Dallin H. Oaks and me. It was 40 years ago, on April 7th, 1984, when we were sustained to the quorum of the 12 apostles. And the day that he was giving this talk, it was April 7th, 2024. And then the day after was the eclipse on the 8th. So now I can't say for sure that in the vision that we're about to read, it's talking about the Gregorian calendar, so the 4th month being April, or if it's talking about the Hebrew calendar, but there's something interesting with that. So we'll look at that in just a minute. Before we do, here's the update on the Flood the Earth Challenge. We're at 9,963 copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared so far. We're trying to get to 10,000, getting very, very close to that. I'm working my way through the comments and the emails. I'm searching for hashtag flood. That's what you should put in your comment or your email so I can find it easily. Please don't add any other information if you have like additional stuff for the channel, questions, or please don't use this to contact me. Only use it when you're reporting how many copies of the Book of Mormon you shared, or if somebody got baptized, please. We do have a report of somebody meeting with the missionaries, which brings us to a total of 175. So as always, pray for that person, pray for all of them, that they'll be touched by the Spirit and find the desire within themselves to join the church and get baptized. So good job, everybody. Keep up the good work. Okay, so back to this article in the Nauvoo Neighbor. I found out about this from Joni, who has the Joyous Genealogist channel. Make sure to subscribe to her. She's getting really close to 1,000. Can you please help me out and get her to 1,000? I think that would make her day. Please do it. I'll put a link for her channel in the description box below. But she told me about this because she was watching a presentation by Joseph Smith Foundation. Please subscribe to them as well. And I've interviewed Hannah Stoddard, who's with Joseph Smith Foundation. Me and Troy did an interview with her a couple times. We have this one, Smith Family Farm Controversy, and then the rise of secularism in the church. They were really good interviews. I'll put a link for those interviews in the description box below. So, yeah, so she was watching a presentation by Joseph Smith Foundation. And of course, I want to do my own research and find the primary source. And so I did. And initially, when I came here to Joseph Smith Foundation, it pointed to the Millennial Star and the Nauvoo Neighbor. I looked up Millennial Star first because that's what I'm most familiar with. Okay, so October 15th, 1845, and it's right here. And then you can see someone penciled in the date for the article in the Nauvoo Neighbor, which was very helpful. So I'm glad whoever did that they did that, because then I was able to go to archive.org and find the original source. So Nauvoo, Hancock County, Illinois, Wednesday, September 10th, 1845. And you can see right here, the Nauvoo Neighbor is printed and published every Wednesday by John Taylor. When you go to the Nauvoo Neighbor's Wikipedia page, it talks about the fact that this was put together by Apostle John Taylor. So again, at the time, he was in the quorum of the 12 apostles. He later became the 3rd president of the church. Okay, so here it is right here. I just want to show you. I'm not going to read it from here because it's a little bit difficult to read. but I'll leave a link for this in case you want to come back here and you want to read other articles or research further in this issue. So I'm just going to read from the Millennial Star in the Church History Catalog. 100 years hence, 1945, from the Nauvoo Neighbor. God, through his servants, the prophets, has given all men a clue to the future. In view of this, we, and I just want to point that out, so it's not just John Taylor, it's at least one other person. And again, I haven't read this all the way through, so I don't know the identity of that other person or other people. But he says, we were cogitating upon our bed the other night, what would be the state of the world 100 years hence? In quick succession, the events and periods which have filled up nearly 6,000 years passed before our mind's eyes, together with the accompanying, thus saith the Lord, I will destroy the earth with a flood. After 120 years, there shall be 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine in Egypt. Israel shall be held captive in Babylon till the land enjoys her Sabbaths 70 years. And then came Daniel's numbers, and the exact time when the Savior should be born, his crucifixion, and second coming. While thus looking over the has-beens, we fell into a deep sleep, and the angel of our presence came to the bedside and gently said, Arise. Now, it mattereth not whether we were in the body or out of it, asleep or awake, on the earth or in heaven, or upon the water or in the air. The sum of the matter is like this. Our guide, for such we shall call the angel, or being that conveyed us, soon brought us in sight of a beautiful city. As we were nearing the place, a pillar of fire, seemingly over the most splendid building, lit the city and country for a great distance around. And as we came by, the temple of the Lord in Zion, in letters of a pure language, so I guess that's presumably the pure Adamic language, and sparkling like diamonds, disclosed where we were. Our guide went around the city in order to give us a chance to, quote unquote, count the towers. And as it was nearly sunrise, he conducted us into one that we might have a fair chance to view the glory of Zion by daylight. We seemed to be swallowed up in sublimity. The pillar of fire, as the sun rose majestically, mellowing into a white cloud as a shade for the city from heat. The dwellings, so brilliant by night, had the appearance of precious stones, and the streets glittered like gold, and we marveled. Marvel not, said our guide. This is the fulfillment of the words of Isaiah. For brass I will bring gold, and for iron I will bring silver, and for wood brass, and for stone iron. I will also make thine officers peace, and thine executors righteousness. Now, the eyes of our understanding began to be quickened, and we learned that we were 100 years ahead of common life, and we glorified. Now, let me just pause right here. So it's pretty clear that at least John Taylor, as he wrote this article, believed that this was the year 1945, because that's what he put at the beginning of this article. And as far as I know, that hasn't taken place. We don't have the city of Zion the way it's being described here. So I tend not to think that this is symbolic, what he's saying. Although it could be. Maybe he wasn't given the exact time. Maybe 100 was just supposed to be like communicated to him, or he was supposed to understand it to be like, oh, a long time in the future. I don't know. I mean, you can put your thoughts below. But anyway, let's continue. The veil that hides our view from the glory of the upper deep had been taken away, and all things appeared to us as to the Lord. The great earthquake mentioned by John and other prophets before him, had leveled the mountains over the whole earth. The sea had rolled back as it was in the beginning. The crooked was made straight, and the rough places plain. The earth yielded her increase, and the knowledge of God exalted man to the society of resurrected beings. The melody and prayers of the morning in Zion showed that the Lord was here, and truly so. For after breakfast, the chariot of Jesus Christ was made ready for a pleasure ride. And the chariots of his 144,000 glittered in the retinue of God's greatest and best, so gloriously that the show exhibited the splendor of gods, whose father's name they bore on the front of their crowns. That's interesting. I'll have to copy this down and put it under the 144,000 on my spreadsheets. Our curiosity excited us to inquire what day they celebrated. Okay, now look at this. So it's like a celebration day. The 144,000 are there. Christ is there. Okay, what day they celebrated? To which the guide replied, here it is. This is the feast day of the Lord to Joseph and Hiram Smith, for being martyred for the truth, held yearly on the 7th day of the 4th month throughout all the tribes of Israel. Okay, so that's an oddly specific detail. Now, my best guess and my assumption is that this is referring to our calendar, although I don't know if our Gregorian calendar is going to continue in the millennium or if it's going to be changed to something else. So I went to hebcal.com and I went back to the year 1844. Okay. Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith were martyred June 27th, 1844. And I looked at the Hebrew calendar. This is a graphic that Rabbi Gerfine sent to me because we were talking about the tribes of Israel and why there's 12 and the Jewish perspective. And in Judaism, they have one tribe that corresponds to each month of the year. So the first month of the year is Nisan, and it corresponds with Judah. And then after that, Zebulun, and then Issachar. And you'll notice that every 3, you have one of the head tribes. You'll remember that when Israel was wandering in the wilderness, they camped in a certain way, in a certain order, and they also marched in a certain order. And what you had groups of 3 tribes. So in this case, you'd have Judah, Zebulun, and Issachar, and Judah would be like the leader tribe of the other 2. And the way that the Jews view the months of the year is like you have Judah that brings in the spring, you have Reuben that brings in the summer, Ephraim brings in the fall, and Dan brings in the winter. So anyway, if we're looking at this, the 4th month is the month of Tammuz, or Tammuz. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. So that's the month that corresponds with Reuben, but that's beside the point. So in the year that Joseph Smith was martyred, it did just so happen that he was martyred in the month of Tammuz. It wasn't on the 7th day, but it was pretty close. So if we go by some kind of form of like the Hebrew calendar or how the Hebrew calendar is now, then maybe that makes sense. I don't know. In that year, the 17th would have been the first day of Tammuz. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then 3 days later is when he was martyred. So maybe it's like, oh, we're doing it 3 days ahead of, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know, but that is an interesting detail. And then, like I said before, it's interesting that on our calendar, the 7th day of the 4th month was brought up in this last General Conference by President Nelson, as both him and President Oaks reached their 40-year anniversary as apostles. And he left this footnote pointing out these unusual dates of the apostles that passed away before them, whose spots they filled. They died exactly 1 year apart. LeGrand Richards and Mark E. Peterson, exactly 1 year apart on January 11th of 1983 and 1984. So there's really interesting things going on with President Nelson and President Oaks. And here's just another thing. If this vision is true, if it's real, I don't doubt it because it's coming from John Taylor. I don't know. April 7th. It's interesting. Okay. Let's continue. Flesh and blood cannot comprehend the greatness of the scene. The worthy of the earth, with Adam at their head, the martyrs of the different dispensations, with Abel at their head. That's an interesting detail. Abel at the head of the martyrs. That's a really neat thought. Remember, we find out in David O. McKay's diaries that the reason that Far West is a holy place and why there's a temple that was going to be built there, and I assume still will be built in the future, is because that's the site where Cain killed Abel. And I've never thought of Abel in the sense of him being a martyr until now. So I really like that. Okay, so, and honorable men from other worlds. Oh, okay, honorable men from other worlds, composed an assemblage of majesty, dignity, and divinity, so much above the little pageantry of man in his self-made greatness, that we almost forgot that mortals ever enjoyed anything more than misery in all the pomp and circumstance of man's power over man. This was a feast day for truth. This was the reward of integrity. This was the triumph of kings and priests unto God, and was a holiday of eternity. Wow. A holiday of eternity. Who could be happier than he that was among the holy throng? No one. And away we rode. Okay. And away we rode out of Zion among her stakes. And the first city out, we found the same spirit. All were one. While there, the following news by post came from the east. It was read from one of the papers just published that morning. Okay, let's go to the next page. Sorry. In digging the foundation of our new temple in the 124th city of Joseph. What? The 124th city of Joseph? Near where it is supposed the city of New York once stood. A large square stone was taken from the ruins of some building, which by a seam in it indicated more than mere stone. The seam being open disclosed a lead box about 6 by 8 inches square. This box was soon found to contain several daily papers of its time, together with some coin of the old government of the United States. It will be recollected that all the inhabitants of this city, which were spared from calamity, were slung out when the earth was turned upside down, some 40 or 50 years ago, for their wickedness. The account of fires is what in one of these papers was truly lamentable, destroying, as the paper said, more than 25 million's worth of property in about 3 months. Each contained a large number of murders, suicides, riots, robberies, and hints of war expected, with columns of divisions among the sectarian churches about slavery, onderdonking. Can somebody look that up for me and let me know what that is? Put it in the comments below. Onderdonking and the right way. The Archer of Paradise remarked, as these horrors of old times were being read, that all that was transacted in the last days of Babylon before Satan was bound. Oh, this kind of sounds like in Doctrine and Covenants 88, you have two sets of trumpets. One set has to do with the order of resurrection, and then the other set has to do with revealing each period of the last 6,000 years, essentially. All the secret works of men. And that kind of sounds like this right here. All that was transacted in the last days of Babylon before Satan was bound. And you guys, it is going to be surreal being in the millennium in this new world, looking back at the old times, the days of horror of the last 6,000 years. Okay. Joseph Smith said, okay, so here's our first. Okay, so we have an angel, and then we have Joseph Smith now. So let me take note of that. I am pretty sure I'm going to put this on my quotes, visions, and visitations spreadsheet. It seems legitimate to me. So we have an angel, and now we have Joseph Smith. And then I'll do my tally over here because I'm keeping track of all the heavenly messengers and visitors over here to the right. Okay, so we have Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith said, Lord, we will put those papers and coin in the repository of relics and curiosities of Satan's kingdom of the old world. This is getting really sci-fi really fast. I don't mean this isn't science fiction, but it feels like something that you would see in a science fiction movie, like a post-apocalyptic world where you have museums and repositories for the horrors of the old world. Oh gosh, that's going to be a great day. Okay, which was agreed to by all after exhibiting the coin. The silver coin contained the words United States of America and $50, round the image of an eagle on one side and a woman sitting upon the word liberty and holding up a nightcap between 13 stars over 1845 on the other. Oh, so I guess the year that they're having this vision. The only idea that could be gathered from all this was that the government had fallen from the splendor of an eagle to the pleasure of women and was holding up the nightcap as a token that the only liberty enjoyed then was starlight liberty because their deeds were evil. Oh, that's interesting. Another coin had the appearance of gold with $5 upon it, but upon close examination, it was found to be nothing but fine brass. While this was going on, the Lord said, beware of the leaven of old. Let us enjoy our day. In a moment, this band of brethren were off, and what could equal the view? No veil, no voice. The heavens were in their glory, and the angels were ascending and descending. The earth was in its beauty, the wolves and sheep, the calves and lions, the behemoth, and the buffalo, the child and the serpent enjoyed life without fear, and all men were one. As we were passing to another city, amid all this perfection of the reign of Jesus before his ancients gloriously, we discovered the fragment of a hewn stone of a lightish blue color with an abbreviated word Mo. If you're just listening, it's M-O, like capital M and then O. The figure, maybe that's like Missouri. I don't know. And the figures 1838 upon it. To which the lion of the Lord exclaimed, the wicked are turned into hell and forgotten, but the righteous reign with God in glory. And it seemed as if the echo came from a redeemed world glory. Okay, I got to look this up. No, Missouri became a state in 1821, so it doesn't look like it's in reference to that. If anyone knows what this would be referring to, Mo in 1838, put it in the comments below. I'm not going to look into it anymore right now. Okay, at about 2 after 5 hours' ride among the cities and stakes of Zion, we returned to the capital to partake of the feast of the martyrs. The preparation was perfect. A table through the grove of Zion for more than 300,000 saints. Okay, that's quite a bit, 300,000. Where Jesus Christ sat at the head of the fathers and mothers, sons and daughters of Israel, was a sight which the world, even Babylon in its best days, never witnessed. Says Jesus, as every eye turned upon him, "Our Father and thine, bless me and mine. Amen." After the feast, the sentiments, words of wisdom, and other touching matters were to be published in Zomara, or Pure News, and are omitted. This is it. I've never heard of that word before. Zomara, or Pure News. We stepped into the newsroom. In the first article in the Pure News, which attracted our attention, was the minutes of the General Conference held in Zion on the 14th day of the first month. What? That's when President Nelson became president of the church, January 14th of 2018. Again, I'm not saying that there's a connection, but this is now like the second thing that matches up with President Nelson. Immediately after that, he says the year 1945 AD. So again, I don't know why there's like this specificity when it comes to 1945, because that has not happened. I don't think that this is a false vision, but maybe just the time wasn't revealed. Again, I don't know. Okay, so the minutes of the General Conference held in Zion on the 14th day of the first month, AD 1945, when it was mentioned by Joseph Smith and seconded by John the Revelator, that 48 new cities be laid out and builded this year in accordance with the prophets which have said, "Who can number Israel? Who can count the dust of Jacob? Let him fill the earth with cities," carried unanimously. So can you imagine that, you guys? Getting into the millennium, it's not just temples that are being announced, but it's like cities. Because, again, if the city of Zion had been built, it was going to have the 24 temple complex, and Joseph Smith received the plans for the city, and the city was just going to be 15 to 20,000 people. You can find this on the Joseph Smith papers. And then after that, you would go and build another city after the same pattern. It's not clear if the new city would also have 24 temples or just one. But could you imagine in the millennium, it's like, okay, now we're going to have this temple and the city that's associated with it. If like cities were being announced in General Conference. I don't know. Okay. 12 of these cities to be laid out beyond 18 degrees north for the tribes of Reuben, Judah, and Levi. 12 on the east at the same distance for the tribes of Joseph, Benjamin, and Dan. 12 on the south at the same distance for the tribes of Simeon, Issachar, and Zebulun. And 12 on the west at the same distance for the tribes of Gad, Asher, and Naphtali, or Naphtali. I'm going to have to check. I'm not going to do it now, but I know Ezekiel talked about the third temple and the gates of the city and all that stuff. And like, this is a different order of tribes. This is different from how they camped around the tabernacle in the wilderness. And you find the same thing in Ezekiel. And I don't know if what Ezekiel says matches up with what we just read, but it could be. I'll have to double check on that. The paper contained a notice for the half-yearly conference as follows. The general half-yearly conference will be held at Jerusalem on the 14th day of the 7th month, alternately with the yearly conference in Zion. Interesting. This is, you guys, this is so interesting. My goodness. So it's like General Conference, if this is true, it's going to go back and forth between New Jerusalem and Old Jerusalem. And it's going to be on so first you had the first month on the 14th day, and now you have the 7th month on the 14th day. And what months those are referring to, whether it's the Gregorian calendar or Hebrew calendar, I don't know. But that is really interesting. Okay, let's move on. We're almost to the end. It is proposed that the highway cast up between the two cities of our God be decorated with fruit and shade trees between the cities and villages, which are only 80 furlongs apart, for the accommodation of wayfaring men of Israel. Gabriel has brought from paradise some seeds of fruit and grain, which were originally in the Garden of Eden, and will greatly add to the comfort and convenience of man. Oh my gosh, this is like one of the most incredible things I've ever read, you guys. While we were engaged in reading, a strain of music from some of the sweet singers of Israel came so mellowly over our sensations for a moment that we hardly knew whether the angels or saints of the Millennium were chanting a vesper to their Savior. We were also delighted with the performance as we saw the musical chariot, quote unquote, pass, filled with young men and maidens, all in white robes, that we only remember the following verses. Death and Satan being banished, and the veil forever vanished, all the earth's again replenished, and in beauty appears. So we'll sing alleluias while we worship our Savior and fill the world with cities through the great 1,000 years. Okay, our eye next caught a map showing the earth as it was and is. We were delighted with the earth as it is. 4 rivers headed a little south of Zion, which makes sense because that's the original location of the Garden of Eden, Jackson County, Missouri. 4 rivers headed a little south of Zion, for Zion is situated in the side of the north, quote unquote. It's in the side of the north. The first river is called Passon, Passon, and runs west. The second is called Giau and runs south. The third is called Haudakal and runs north. And the fourth is called the Fratters and runs east. This is really detailed. Okay, these 4 rivers divide the earth into 4 quarters, as it were in the days of Adam, and with their tributaries give in uninterrupted water communication over the face of the world. For in the beginning the earth was not called finished till it was very good for everything. By the paper we were reading, we learned that rain was expected in the beginning of the 7th month according to the law of the Lord. Okay, so weather is going to be according to the law, which I guess it kind of is. I mean, obviously all nature obeys the laws of God, but this implies that no, there is going to be rain in the 7th month. Okay, for the promise is, it shall rain moderately in the 1st and 7th month, that the plowman may overtake the reaper. Contemplating the greatness of the earth and its glory, with Jesus Christ for her king, president, and lawgiver, with such wise counselors as Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Elijah, Peter, and Joseph, we were imperceptibly led to exclaim, "Great is the wisdom, great is the glory, and great is the power of man with his maker." When on a sudden our guide came in and said, "You must drink wine with the Lord in his kingdom and then return." This we did, and many things we saw are not lawful to utter, and can only be known as we learn them by the assistance of a guardian angel. I would like to know what that is. I guess we'll find out at some point. When we were ready to return, our guide observed, perhaps you would like to look through the Urim and Thummim of God upon the abominations of the world in the day of its sin. Yes, was our reply, and he handed us the holy instrument. One look, and the soul sickened. Eye hath not seen, ear hath not heard, neither hath it entered into the heart of man what folly, corruptions, and abominations are wrought among men to gratify the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, the cunning of the devil. But they shall come. We returned and awoke, perfectly enamored with the beauty and glory of Zion to be, as well as the splendor and harmony of the feast of the martyrs, determining in our mind at some future day to give a sketch of the temple wherein Jesus sat and reigned with the righteous, when there was not a Canaanite in the land, nor anything to hurt or destroy in all the holy mountain, when the earth should be full of the knowledge of God as the waters cover the sea. In short, the heavenly reality of 100 years hence. Wow. I have never heard this before. This is news to me. I'm not going to necessarily look, you guys, this is the only place that you see this. I've never seen this referred to. But it comes through a credible source. It comes from one of the apostles. It was published in the Nauvoo Neighbor, right? And nothing here sounds wrong, incorrect. This is what I would expect to hear in somebody describing the millennium. And I'm really interested in some of these details. You know, like talking about the names of the rivers and the earth and the city of Zion, New Jerusalem, being in the north, the side of the north, as it's termed right here. This feast for the martyrs, Abel being the head of the martyrs. This is some pretty incredible stuff. So I'm going to hold on to this. I'm going to put it, I am going to put it on my spreadsheet. So I don't know exactly when this happened, but it was after the death of Joseph Smith and before September 10th of 1845. So it was in the 1840s. So I'll add another tally for the 1840s. So that brings it to 6 dreams, visions, visitations, near-death experiences, etc. 6 for the 1840s. Let me zoom in. So that makes it so that the 1840s are now, with that, in third place. Not that it's a contest, but the decade with the most is the 1830s, followed by the 1820s, and now the 1840s. That was pretty amazing, and I feel like I'm going to have to come back here and look at some of these details again. But I'm stunned. Again, I'm stunned the date of this feast for the martyrs and how that seems to match up with when President Nelson and President Oaks hit their 40-year mark, or when they became apostles. If it's using our calendar, that's when they became apostles. And then the new General Conference schedule, the first month and the 7th month, on the 14th day, President Nelson became president of the church on January 14th. That is crazy. I'm probably gonna have to revisit this. I want to see if the order of the tribes that we just read, if that matches up with Ezekiel. I wouldn't be surprised if it did. But my goodness, like I always say, I've been a member of the church my entire life, and I thought I knew a lot, and I did. But as I've done this channel and people recommend all these things and know where all the hidden things are, and I collect them, I'm surprised the things that I didn't know. And I have to wonder what else is out there. Frankly, and I don't want to sound prideful, I thought maybe at this point, it's like, okay, I found all the big things. Like all the big things, I probably got it at this point. No, look at this. This is crazy. Not crazy. It's amazing. My gosh, what is going to come next? Okay, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.